Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend, getting all prepped up for the holidays coming up here. So we'll go into kind of the last stretch before we have some time off. So first little article, bull markets often end with a euphoric rally called a blow-off top. We may have just seen one. The Dow was up 10.5% over the course of 74 trading days from mid-August to late November. That kind of rally is similar to the ones that ended previous bull markets, said Ned Davis Research. The Dow has posted a median gain of 13.4% over a median time frame of 61 days. Blow-off tops dating back to 1901, according to Top. So we see that we've got some room. I mean, this is the record one here in 1929, but obviously we don't want to ever see what happened in 1929 ever again. But you can see we're right now in the right in the general vicinity of blow-offs in the past. So we have some outliers here, but otherwise we're right where we see blow-off tops quite often. So again, just another little red indicator that we're seeing. Also, Nick sent in a great article. Corporate America's debt load is nearing $10 trillion, a record 47% of the overall economy. And experts around the world are sounding the alarm. So guys, if you got people in bond funds, get them the heck out. Get them the heck out and do an FIA. U.S. corporate debt has swelled to nearly $10 trillion, according to data recently cited by Washington Post. That comes out to really 47% of the overall economy. Experts from the International Monetary Fund to the trillion-dollar asset manager BlackRock, I mean, they're the biggest manager out there, Manager BlackRock, have warned of the risk posed by ballooning investment-grade debt. And is that just risk to the bond market, guys? Is that just risk to the bond market? Yeah, it's also risk to the stock market as a whole. Since 2008 financial crisis, companies have issued record levels of bonds to investors amid historically low interest rates. So just another little warning sign. Yeah, many of you have seen this, but you should have this article, and we now have this article. And Missy, where did we put this article on the site?
I actually will attach it to this call, and then we have the whole packet that we've attached it to.
Okay. So those of you know we have a packet for anybody thinking about Ken Fisher. This will be attached to that packet. Inside Ken Fisher's private kingdom, where hardball culture reels in billions. We've all known this for ever and ever and ever, but because of his stupid statements about getting to a girl's pants, there's been a lot of investigative journalism now that we now have it in black and white to share with clients. The cold calls go out, and this is from the article. Cold calls go out hundreds a day from a dank basement in Redwood Hills, south of San Francisco. Inside rambling rustic chic house, the billionaire Ken Fisher has deployed a division of his mostly young, mostly male acolytes in a single high-pressure mission, sell. Worn top carpets, musty smells, poor insulation is not where you might expect from a money management empire that's been overseeing more than $100 billion. But then this is the private kingdom of Ken Fisher, and Fisher's way is the only way. So what does this paint? Just this first opening paragraph, what does this paint? A trusted entity or a sleazy entity? Yeah, creep, exactly. Creep, Michael. For days, the idiosyncratic money manager sold himself as a brilliant stock picker with the help of almost a dozen books, torrents of direct mail, seminars, videos, ads, magazine columns, mornings. Happy investors, we do better when you do better. Indeed, Fisher Investments has done very well. For most of all, for Ken Fisher. This is right in the article, guys. Over the past decade, as the firm filled mailboxes across America with tens of millions of marketing flyers, it has employed aggressive sales tactics to sell stock investments with relatively steep fees. Fisher, and I didn't blank that out. At a staff meeting in 2008, for example, as financial markets were reeling, a woman asked Fisher if he'd considered shifting into defensive holdings. Why would I want half a dick? Fisher replies, according to two people attending the meeting. So what does that say about his worry about what's happening to his clients' monies? Is he worried at all about his clients? Yeah, zilch, exactly right. Zilch. Interviews with more than a dozen current former employees paint a sobering picture of life inside Fisher Investments that began long before the recent blow-up. Some described severe pressure so it's not just recently, this has been going on for years. Some described severe pressure to reel in and keep customers. Many spoke on the condition of anonymity to avoid jeopardizing their careers and violating non-disclosure agreements. From Camas, an old mill town that's turned into a growing suburb along the mighty Columbia River, Fisher instills a hit the phones or hit the bricks ethos. Salespeople must stick to a rigid schedule and make hundreds of calls a day, sifting through the names of mostly unqualified and uninterested prospects. Many hires are recruited directly from college and are gone in a year or two. Now, this is the big one. To be able to be sure a strong culture driven by metrics is hardly unusual with financial services, but Fisher's heavy use of direct mail call centers stock picking stands out in an era of that is unregistered, many registered investment advisors emphasizing low-cost strategies such as funds tracking major indexes. The firm's advertisements say it tailors portfolios to individual clients, but former employees say that most clients end up in the exact same stock holdings. Publicly available information on Fisher's funds and strategies showed mixed performance. The Charisma Total Return Fund, for example, returned well under half of the S&P 500 in its final 10 years before it was liquidated in 2016. So why did they liquidate it? To hide what? So they buried the underperformance, exactly. Counselors are instructed to delve into customers' personal lives. Do you know any public figures, journalists, anyone in national, local politics? What about finance, about lawyers? One template used by some investment counselors lists these among the required question for clients. Why do you think they're requiring those questions? Because such questions can help avoid trouble in the event a client becomes unhappy with Fisher. So if you answer yes to these things, guess what they do? If you answer yes to these, what do? Yeah, they don't want you as a client. On to the next client. Goodbye. So, guys, if you show this article, anybody think about Fisher, anybody you know that's in Fisher, holy crap. But this is the big one that I was talking about earlier. Sorry. This is the big one. Clients who live in certain locations are off limits. One of them is Clark County. That's where Thomas is nestled and where Fisher lives. Former colleagues say that he wants to avoid bumping into unhappy clients. What does it say when you refuse to market your product to where you live? Would any of you buy something where the person who sold it refused to live there? I mean, you can throw the whole article away. This says it all about that scumbag. Because if you're confident that you have a good product, guys, are you happy to be marketing in your local neighborhood with what you offer? Yeah, you are, because you've got value. This guy doesn't want to be marketing. So, enough said. So this article will be attached to this call. I would have it, and it'll also be attached to the packet we have for people who want to use it. And we've had lots of guys use it successfully to get clients to look at that and say next on Fisher that they don't want to do. But this is only just only solidifying everything that that packet has. So Gong. And so the next thing we'll talk about is some sales presentation techniques from a different sales training organization. The sales training organization is called Gong, and they are premier in online sales training for large corporations. But they talked about 14 sales press techniques that will close more deals. Now let's take a look and see how many of these that we actually utilize. So number one, send a buyer presentation before your meeting. So guys, is this book the presentation before your 21-point checklist? Yeah. So guys that have done this have found that people are very, very open to and already excited about the 21-point checklist before you even begin that. So it gets them on the right side of the page on what we're going to be doing. So if you want to look at the best way to use that, instead of just handing them the book, because nobody wants to read a book, what you do is you will insert at a certain point a note saying, hey, just read these 2 or 3 pages. So under the library, archive library, you're going to find it called the follow-up book mini system, and it will explain how we do that. So that's a great thing to be pre-solving them. Number 2, invoke self-discovery. Before you discuss solutions, you must understand the problem. Do we do this, guys? With the 21-point checklist, do we do this? Do we give them solutions at the 21-point checklist? No. What we do is what? And what's the problem they discover? What's the problem they discover at the 21-point checklist? You guys are getting so good. Yes, their advisor. That's the problem. Their advisor. That's the problem. Awesome. Great job, guys. Number 3, talk about the solutions after the problems. Isn't that what we do? See, 95% of salespeople spend all their time on solutions. How many of our competitors spend all their time trying to show people that they have a great solution, a great income strategy, a great product, a great tax strategy, a great whatever? That's what they all do. The problem is what? Can you guys do every single thing that your competitors do? Can you show them the same products? Can you show them the same income strategies? Could you show them exactly every single thing that they're doing? Yeah. So yet they have no differentiation there. Instead of spending 95% of your time on the solutions, you spend 95% of your problems. And is that what we do? In fact, we don't spend 95% of the problems. What do? We spend 100% of the time on problems until they decide to move their money. Then we'll show them the solution. Number 4, insight is your number 1 priority. You're most likely to impress a buyer by telling them something new about themselves. Guys, we talk about this. If I'm walking through an airport, and I have cancer, and I see on a paper, it says, USA Today paper says, cure for cancer, will I buy that paper? I'm getting half yeses and half nos. Here's the catch. Do I know I have cancer? Just because I have cancer, do I know I have cancer? So I don't know if I'll buy that paper or not. So when people walk into our office, do they know they have cancer? No. So you're most likely to impress a buyer by telling them something new about themselves. Do they find out something new about themselves when they sit down for a 21-point checklist? Yes, they do. Exactly. 5, don't tell them you're different. Let them discover it for themselves. So at seminars, how much time do I want you talking about yourself at the beginning of a seminar? With your experience and what you do and all your credentials and blah, 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 blah. That's right, 0, 0, 0, nada. You'll have those slides up and running while people are sitting down, showing slides of your family, showing your credentials, showing little quizzes. I mean, you do that at the beginning, but you let the slides do it. When you start presenting, you go right into it. How much time should you spend talking about how brilliant you are at your meetings? None, zilch. And that's what I find, especially when I find guys who come on the system at first, and they're already successful. They're already making maybe $300,000 a year. Guess what they do during their meetings when they first come on the system? Guys are making $300,000, $400,000 a year. Guess what they do in their meetings? Yeah, they show off, talking about how great they are, how many clients they have, how much money they manage, how all their credentials. And what does that do to a baby boomer? That worked great for the greatest generation. What does that do for a baby boomer? And now here's the funny thing. Guess why that person who's making $300,000 or $400,000 comes onto the system then? Because that's a pretty good income. 300, 400. I mean, it's not a couple million, but 300 or 400 certainly nothing to sneeze at. So why do they come onto the system? What the problem is guess where that $300,000 or $400,000 is coming from? What kind of clients? Clients they got last year or clients they got 10 years ago, and the clients are getting older and older and older. Yeah, so that stuff worked when their clients were old. Their older clients, that stuff worked for the greatest generation. It does not work for baby boomer. Let them discover it for themselves. Let them discover they should trust you. Let them discover that you're different. Let them discover that you have more knowledge than everybody else. So let them. Don't tell them. Even if you've been in the desert forever, and you've been in the desert for a day, for a week, and you are thirsty as heck, and there's the glass of water right in front of you, and the person who rescues takes that glass and tries to make you drink. What are you going to do? They grab the drink and they try to force that water into your mouth. What are you going to do? Push back. You want to be the one that drinks that water. You're going to say, no, back off. Give me the glass. Let me drink myself. So we want them. We want to lead them to the trough to drink, but don't shove their face in it. Let them discover it for themselves. Number 6, sound and look like a professional. First of all, how many of you guys watched the 2-hour 21-point checklist of me doing with Jeff? Give me some whys if you have. 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Okay. So what was I doing in there that shows that I'm a professional? And I hadn't done that really for 10 years. What was I doing that showed that I'm a professional? Writing upside down. Guys, that seems like a simple, weird thing, but what does it tell you when I can write it? So what does that tell the client when I write upside down? How many times have I done this? Gazillions. Well, since I brought that up, for the guys that watch the videos, gals watch the videos, was that helpful, or did that kind of was it helpful? Did you see how everything fit together? Did you see how the gestures I make and the other little things that I do? Okay, so that was a worthwhile. Okay, good, awesome, good. Yeah, so look and sound. Oh, also, did you see? Do I make some mistakes in there, guys? Do I use closed-ended questions in there? Yeah, I do. And then what do I immediately when I ask a closed-ended question? What do I immediately follow up with though? And open. Yeah. Did I misspeak myself? Did I say when I wanted to say down? Did I say up? A couple of times. Yeah. And did that hurt the meeting at all? No. So do you see by asking questions, did I see? Here's the great thing. By me asking questions, but how many questions was I asking per minute? About 4 or 5. So here's the great thing. When I'm asking 4 or 5 questions, even though some of them were closed and some were open, by asking 4 or 5 questions, how quickly was it before Jeff caught me that one time making a mistake, or that I corrected a mistake myself if I made the mistake and he didn't correct me? If I ask lots of questions, how quickly do mistakes like that get corrected? Immediately. That's right, Ron, immediately. So that's the great thing about asking questions. If there's a mistake, it's corrected almost immediately. Start with the big thing first. No. This is the one thing that they say that I disagree with. Because when I was making $50,000 a year, I would go for the fees and the unnecessary fees people were paying to show them the guy was stealing from them. And if the first thing you show somebody is the big thing, the fact that the guy is stealing from them, what is their knee-jerk reaction? To defend the guy. They defend their guy. So that's why I was making $50,000 a year. So this is the thing that I will disagree with them. They say, like, if you're presenting something, don't start with the small thing. Start with the big thing. No. We do the boil of the frog mentality. Get your big toe in the door, then all your toes in the door, then half your foot in the door, then the full foot in the door, and you keep going till you can kick that door down. So this is the one thing that I will disagree. Start with the small things and build. Yeah, credibility built first. That's right. I totally agree with that. Number 8, turn your presentation into a conversation. Do we do this? Yes. We don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. We turn it into a conversation. And we go back to those guys that when they come on and they're making $300,000 or $400,000 a year and they're wondering why they're not having the success they had before. Why are they having the problem? Because they're awesome. They are the best people at telling, selling, and preaching and teaching. That work fantastic for the greatest generation. But does this work for baby boomers with money? No, it does not. Works with baby boomers with very little money, with $50,000 or $100,000, but it doesn't work for baby boomers that have $500 million, $2 million, $4 million. Don't spend more than 9 minutes on a point. Did you notice how long were any of those topics in the 21-point checklist? Were any of them over 9 minutes? Yep, they were like 4 or 5 minutes. All of them were. Number 10, use social proof, not famous proof. They found that naming an impressive client for brand power caused closing rates to drop by 22%. We go right back to, again, when I see those guys that are really successful when they first come on, but they're struggling now, what do they like to do? What do we talk about that they want to do for that first 5 or 10 minutes? Talk about what? Yeah, drop names, talk about how great they are, talk about bigger business. What people want, what works in today's is tribal proof. They want to know that people just like them use you. People just like them have had success. So I guess if you're going after famous people, go ahead and use what? That's proof. Famous people. If you're working with famous people, drop famous people's names. But if you're not working with famous people, but you have one or two famous people as clients, guess what? Don't do that. What you should do is constantly let people know. And if you think about the the FI presentation, even in the 21-point checklist, when I say, now how many people love their grandkids? Why am I doing that? Tribal proof. Yeah, so somebody, if I've got 100 grandparents lined up, and somebody says they don't like their grandkids, what would everybody else think about that guy? What would the other 99 think about that guy? See, I'm using tribal proof. Or with the FIA, I say, how many of my clients, I'll say, how many of my clients do you think want this? And they say, well, all of them. Yeah. So I'm constantly saying, all my clients, and they want to be among all those clients. It's tribal proof, tribal proof. Number 11, ditch ROI calculators. Use stories instead. How often do we use stories versus spreadsheets? Well, how often do we use spreadsheets? A couple of times in the FIA. How often do we use them in the 29-point checklist? Never. Just stories. ROI and data. Here's why you don't want to do that. And you don't want to prove to people that this was what confuses advisors. They want to prove why clients should move to them. When you start using proof, it awakens the logical processes in the person's brain. And the logical processes in the person's brain is where critical analysis and debate happen. So when you talk facts, your customer's brain can't help but start arguing with your facts. See, when you use stories instead, stories tap into a client's emotional brain. And we all know, do people buy based on data or do they buy based on stories? Data or emotions? Data or emotions? Emotions. They buy on stories. Then they'll validate that decision with the facts. But you see, when you want to prove to people that what they do, and guys, I spent 8 years making $50,000 a year using facts to prove that people needed to move. And what did those facts get me? Nothing. It's when I started to learn to tell stories or let the client tell stories for me that my whole practice changed, and it will for you too. Talk cost after you establish value. Why? Well, why at the beginning of that first meeting with them, who we talked about now, and you're probably wondering a little bit of how I'm paid. Well, half the people come to see me, they'll end up working with me in one shape, one form, or one manner, and depending on how much they do I work with them, or how little I work with them, would depend how I'm paid or how much I'm paid. But about half of you, just like you're seeing here today, they end up taking the information I give them, they go home with it, and they're able to do it themselves. And they don't become a formal client. They can always call me up if they have questions, but they don't become a formal client. So the reason I do that up front is, do I want to talk about what I charge? When do I want to talk about what I charge? When you're watching those 30-minute, when you get trapped watching one of those 30-minute commercials, when do they tell you how much the Ninja food processor costs or the Ginsu knife costs? Because if they told you this Ninja food processor is going to cost $99 at the front, guess what you'd say? Click. I'm moving to the next. I'm not going to do that, and they move to the next channel. But what they do is they create so much value that you don't care how much it costs. You're going to what? Buy it. So they create that need, and that's how we're doing the 21-point checklist. So by the time we get done with the 21-point checklist, I mean, those of you that have had successful 21-point checklists, where people say they can't stand their guy anymore, does how much you charge ever come up? No, it doesn't. They're like, just get me away from this guy. I don't care what you charge. I can't stay with the guy I'm with. That's right. They're on fire. That's right, David. Number 13, learn your competitor's strength and use it. So judo, can small guys be very successful at judo against very big guys? Yeah, because they use that big guy's strength and momentum against them. So we're going to use our competitor's strength against it. And in fact, did you notice? I told you to look for this in the 2-hour video. Did you notice how many times I assigned that I'm not an investment salesperson? Did I do it a lot or a little? Yeah, a lot. So I'm having them think I'm because my competitor was an awesome what? What was my competitor awesome at? Selling investments. So do you see how I'm using his strength against him by having the client assign that as a good thing or a bad thing that that guy was an excellent investment salesperson? That it was a good thing or a bad thing that he was a great investment salesperson? Bad, exactly. So use that against him. Number 14, talk about your competition before your solution. Isn't that what the 21-point checklist is all about? We talk about the competition before we even give them the solution. Because we don't give them the solution until they tell us what? That they're moving. Does that make sense? So these are the 14 things in DC. So I always, when I see other selling experts and what they're recommending, do you mind if I do this occasionally to show you that what we're doing is exactly what all the experts are telling us to do? Cool. Awesome. Well, that is all that I have for today. So thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions on the 2-hour presentation, what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, make sure you reach out to Jeff or myself so we can get that covered for you too. Do you see when I asked those questions, could Jeff answer those questions in any other way that that he did the questions I asked there? Yeah, no. So that's what you want to move towards. Okay. So you guys have a wonderful wonderful rest of the week, and we have a Monday call on Monday, but I know a lot of you guys are taking next week off. So if I don't talk to you next Monday, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, New Year, Hanukkah, and holiday season. And otherwise, I'll talk to everybody else here next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.